Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Basics. We're into the preparing for round one phase, and that is, of course, the seventh episode where we're going to talk about picking a round one team, Brenton. We know this is so important. We want to get off to a great start, and I think it's key for those that are new to the game have some, concepts or a little bit of a framework that they have to pick that team so they can get off to a great start.
Exactly right. And this is where you can do unlimited moves that you need to, because as we know, trades are limited each round. So it's always important to have that round one squad in a spot that you are comfortable with a balanced squad of mid-rangers, guns, and cash cows.
That's right, and you picked up on that eliminated trades thing there. We are going to talk about that quite a fair bit in the next few episodes as we're preparing for round one. Just a refresh, and thankful to say since we brought this slide up previously that we've fixed the error up. We've got one hooker, three middle forwards, two edge forwards, two halves, two centres, and three winger fullbacks in a starting 13. Bench is positionless with 8 players, so we can do whatever we like there. But Brendan, I guess the first thing that we want to do is make sure that, unlike me in 2016 when I didn't have a compliant squad and didn't score in round one, that we have one. How do new coaches make sure that their squad is compliant for round one?
So they have to make sure that all 21 players are filled under that $10 million salary cap, all in their positions that they need to be. So you can't just have 21 middle forwards. You need to have, as is at the positions that you had before, plus your 8 emergencies. You need to have a captain and a vice captain picked, which we didn't really go into vice captain, but a vice captain is someone who can be an emergency captain if your captain doesn't play, so you don't miss out on the double points. And make sure you click on that save button if you're doing it on the desktop, because sometimes the trades do not go through or the changing captaincy doesn't go through, and you are stuck with what you had previously and you will be very angry.
Yes, because in 2016, not a fun time when this happened to me, and I know it's a long time ago, but I certainly don't forget it. And I hate for a new coach to have their round one spoiled by the fact that their team is deemed not compliant by the game's creators. Do recommend as well on that Team List Tuesday, which we'll talk about in a subsequent episode. Just get a squad sort of that you're happy with, maybe the Tuesday, Wednesday before kickoff there. So worst case, if you can't get to it, you can run with that. But Brenton, we've got ourselves some squad goals here, and we'll start with captain and vice captain, as you alluded to. Vice captain has just been introduced in this one, and I think what we want to do is make sure we've got probably two, if not three, really strong scorers at the start that we can rely on should one of those guys not be available for any given reason.
That's correct. And I think you need to actually have about probably 3 or 4 guys who you would be happy to have as your captain. Example this year is the 2 best fantasy players play for the same team. So that would normally be your captain and vice captain. But because they play for the same team, they will also not play in the same game when they have a bye. So you need to have someone who you are happy to have as those double points uh, to facilitate in place of them.
That's right, and whether it does be Nathan Cleary and Isaiah Yeo, as you alluded to there, that you go for, you're going to need some other guys in there that will be very handy in scoring. What we also need, and it's something we spoke about very early in Back to Basics, is we want to build up our team value, and I guess there's two main categories for that. Cash cows, and then there's other underpriced players, which might be at cash cow level, they might be at mid-range level, or they may even be at gun level.
That's correct. And this is going all back to building your squad value. A perfect example is making cash through your bench. So the 18 through 21, so they're your auto emergencies, but they're just sitting in the background making you money and filling in when you need. So it's very, very important to make sure you're doing your research on who those guys are. Example this year would be Sandon Smith, who has come off the bench so much for the Sydney City Roosters. But as we know, Sydney City Roosters, they lost their 5/8 to England and their halfback to an ACL. So there is a much bigger role for him. So he will be a massive cash cow for you.
That's right, and we're going to talk around players that might be inverted commas obvious picks in a subsequent episode, but it's about finding those players that look like they've got clear value and a bit of safety in their role. You mentioned there our 18 to 21, and that's probably a great spot that not only we want to build some cash up, but probably have not only a balance between the positions that these players play, but maybe even, depending on how cheap they are, the teams that they actually play for.
Yeah, it's also another important piece to look at, because generally the teams that are doing a lot better, the more stats that those players are going to accumulate. So cheapie or cash cow from the Panthers or the Storm, maybe 1,000 times better than someone from, let's say, the Tigers or the Dragons.
I'm really glad you didn't use South Sydney as an example of a poor team because, in
I was
fairness,
close.
after 2024, you probably could have gone there, or the back half of 2023. But on that team balance, go into that now. Now, the reason this is important, and we've spoken about this already in the series, is that since the Dolphins came in 2023, we have what we have labelled standalone buys, which means every single round there's at least one team missing. Now, the major buy round period, well, we have major buys where 7 teams are unavailable and minor buys where 3 teams are unavailable are also there. But that doesn't start to around 12. So, Brenton, that first 11 rounds is only one team off. And I think what we need to do is make sure we don't have too many players from, say, maybe those first 6 or 7 teams that have a bye, because as we know from experience, Panthers who have the bye in round 11, we've probably made a lot of trades by that time.
That's right, and you need that's why you say the first 6 rounds, because you still need time for your cash cows to generate that cash. And if they have a buy, then all of a sudden that's one round where they're not making you money. So an example, I guess, would be the Roosters again. Is if they've got a lot of relevant cash cows this season coming up, but they don't have a buy until a lot later. So those players have time to generate the cash, and then you can cash down or cash up, depending on what you want to do with your squad.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess the best way we want to explain this for coaches is that it's quite all right to have maybe 5 Roosters because they got a bye in round 10 this year, or we've got the Panthers of the bye in round 11. That's fine. It's just more where you might have a team like the Warriors who got a bye in round 5 in 2025. You probably need to be more diligent about the players you pick, and you might have to prioritise only picking, say, maybe 1 or 2 from that team instead of maybe 3 or 4 that you like because you're a Wild's fan.
That's exactly right, and it's again the entire game is built upon strategy and hopefully fun as well. But there is a lot of strategy that you can use in this. But these can also be your tiebreak decisions, kind of like how we talked about DPP last episode, being a tiebreak decision. Their buy schedule may be another one as well.
That's right. So just think about that when it comes to teams with early buys. You can check the NRL draw on the NRL website and it will outline those for you. And we've got an example here, which is a bit of a case study and a look forward from when this video is recorded in February 2025. The Melbourne Storm. So they had a buy in round 4 in 2024, and in 2025, upcoming, they got a buy in round 2. Now, I know personally, I had 2 Melbourne Storm players in round 4. I had about 4 injured players, so I wasn't actually able to field more than 17 players that round. Now, this year, round 2, probably a bit easier, Brenton, but we've seen it happen in previous seasons. So for those that might be playing Classic for the first time, this is a good reminder from history that we need to be careful with these maybe first 6, 7 rounds of not having too many players from these sides.
Yeah, especially the first 6 rounds, and I presume we'll go through this in later episodes, but the amount of trades that you get given in those first 6 rounds is much less than what it ends up being after round 6, where you only get 2 trades per week. So if you've got 4 players out from, let's say, the Warriors, like you said, in round 5, and then you've got 2 injuries, then you can only make 2 trades to make sure you're fielding a 17. If you've got worse than that, then you're not fielding a full squad.
Yes, and that really stings early in the season. I can assure you that in 2023 that happened to me. Not a fun time. But that'll wrap up this edition in terms of building your squad. Brenton, what are the key takeaways for the coaches here?
Yep. So just making sure that you have filled every single position in your team, to make sure that it is compliant. So again, captain, vice captain, your 13 positions, as well as your 8 positionless spots on your bench. Aim for your squad goals. So making sure that you have that balance in your side to make sure you can field a full 17. And keep an eye on the teams with the early standalone buys.
Yeah, all pretty simple there. Of course, if any of that doesn't make sense to you, be sure to reach out to us on the socials, so Facebook or Instagram, in the DMs. We can certainly answer any questions if you still have some after this video. Of course, we're also on the TikTok, where Shooter is a massive star. I stay well away from that. And of course, if you're watching this video and you haven't already subscribed to Talking League Shorts, please do go ahead and also hit that notification bell as well. That'll do us for this edition of Back to Basics. Join us for the next one where we explore the concept of value. But it's bye for now.